Welcome back. So sometime in 1925, a group of people came together and thought about starting up a newspaper. June 6, 1925 to be precise. Their first publication was on June 1, 1926, but the incorporation was on June 6, 1925. Richard Barrow, Ademo Alakija, and others thought that it was time to help put the news together. And so, well, they showed the face already, one of our guests. And so they came together with what we got to know as Daily Times, pioneer newspaper and doyen of the media industry, now 90 years old, as they say, nonagenarian. He was human, you say Daily Times, the nonagenarian, 90 years. To help talk about Daily Times and the journey so far, here in our Lagos studio, we have the Group General Manager, Olisa Egbunike. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be with you again on Sunrise.
And joining us from our Abuja studio is Mr. Fidelis Anosike, Chairman, Daily Times. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. So let's begin with you, Mr. Anosike. Tell us the journey of just talk us through the journey of Daily Times from 1925 till date, with all the ups and downs, the turbulence, the restrictions and freedoms that you might have experienced.
Okay, thank you for having me in your studios, in your Abuja lovely studios. Daily Times is old and young, very old and young. You know, I say it's old and young because the core of our demographic, right from the time Daily Times started in 1925, 1926, those guys you mentioned, their names were all in their 20s and 30s, you know. So 11 years ago, we came in at Folio Communications to acquire and rebuild the Heritage brand. You know, it's not been an easy journey, as you know, but, you know, nothing is easy, especially when you're trying to deal with something that is a Heritage brand. There's a lot of emotions that is connected to it. So we took over the company in 2004, and it's been a very exciting journey because we're young, passionate, impact investors. That's who we are. Okay, we're all basically artists and people in the media industry. So we took it over, and then we started looking at the core, and then the first thing is to be able to understand what is Daily Times. Daily Times has watched Nigeria and its leaders evolve over time. So you have to keep it same. So that's why we have been able to try and focus it back to that. If you look at all the features in the paper, you will see that most of the features are designed to be able to fit into that demographics. Between 49 to 50% of Nigerians between the ages of 15 and 54 are our target audience. That's our bullseye audience. So we've started building it step by step. Initially, when we took over, we had a lot of commercial disagreements because Daily Times veered off from being a core media company to even becoming a real estate company. And that's, you know, what happens in Africa when you have a lot of real estate. People are crazy about land and the landed properties. But we've been able to steer off that, and then we've been able to begin to build back the core of the business. And then I must say, you know, Channels has been there for us all the time. Channels has been one of the beacons to be able to show that Daily Times is back and strong. And in less than no time, the introductions that we're going to do in the media industry is going to be able to change the landscape. I don't want to say we are game changers because we own the game. You know, Daily Times is the media, and the media is Daily Times. And also to help you dimension it very well, Daily Times actually was the first Nigerian quoted company on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So you're not dealing with only a media company or a journalism company. You're dealing with a company that's been there, an anchor company for Nigeria. You know, we built the Nigerian Stock Exchange. It was our building till 2005, 2006. You know, all the people that you see, most of the people that you see, who is who in the media industry, in finance, in arts, in every sphere of life, all took their root from Daily Times. So, you know, these days, sensationalism sells paper, but, you know, you can see that most of the things that we try to do on Daily Times, we try to make sure that we are focused on the people's sensibility, because the way we designed our op-ed pages, that's the opinion pages, is second to none. You know, our opinion pages are written in conjunction with about 50 top Nigerians. You know, so we don't just sit down and write an op-ed for everybody. We try to get the in-depth perspective of it. So that's where our journey is being. So the next phase being 90, because the real milestone for us is Daily Times at 100. Everywhere in the world, you see media companies that have outlived the present generation. That's what we're trying to create. Out of nothing comes nothing. You have to know where you're coming from to know where you're going. So Daily Times is there. The core of the Daily Times is our archives. So we have over 90-year-old archives, which we are just finalizing digitization, which would automatically take us to number 1. Once that archive is launched, before our 91st birthday, everybody that is everywhere that wants to know about Nigeria, real focus about Nigeria, the actions that the people took to create this lovely country called Nigeria, that has been distorted so much. The distortion is because most of the time you don't find right angles of how people sat down to create Nigeria. So that's what Daily Times is coming back to do. We're going to be there for Nigeria. We're not going to try to sensationalize stuff because we want to be a market leader. We're already the market, like I said. So that's our journey so far.
Okay. Let me swing to Mr. Ebunike in Lagos. Now, being 90 years old, in terms of a business, it's not very, very old, but if it were a human being, a 90-year-old is an old man, full of wisdom. So what advantage does that symbolic gray hair confer on Daily Times when you talk about the Nigerian media?
Yeah, thank you very much. When you limit the celebration to Daily Times, you are limiting it. We're talking about channels invariably, because channels is a media company. We're not only celebrating Daily Times, we're celebrating the Nigeria and the practitioners. We're celebrating the contribution, the role the media played in the evolution, in the sustainability, in what is today called Nigeria. We've lost a lot of values. We've lost a lot of our history. For us, we just want to reflect. Call our brothers, our professional colleagues, our various media companies that have actually taken a cue from what the Daily Times have done in the past, moving it from a media company to a real company, saying that we can do it. It's not only in the Western world that these things can be done. Daily Times have done it before. We're still doing it. The various media companies that have offshore, that fell out, that came out from Daily Times, who have shown that Nigerians have the capacity. Those are the things we're celebrating, not Daily Times per se. We're just using Daily Times as an anchor to reflect on what the media has been able to do in Nigeria. Well, looking again, apart from the political contribution, the economic contribution, we're looking at what journalists, the role journalists have been able to play. These are some of the things we're looking at. And in our 90-year celebration, like my chairman did say, we're targeting to celebrate the 100 years of Daily Times. That's our main focus. But we're using the 90 years to reflect and ask so many questions. Like he said, there's a lot of sensationalism in the media. We're losing the professional touch to a large extent, especially in the print media. Those are some of the things we want to use these 90 years and call people to order. That's actually what we want to do as far as our celebration is concerned.
So what have you mapped down as celebration? What are you going to be doing to celebrate?
Like I said earlier on, our celebration is going to be on a tripod. We're going to use the occasion to look at Daily Times, the quality of media practitioners. But basically, we're doing three things. We're going to run an essay. You know that history has been kind of eliminated from the curriculum of Nigeria. We're trying to bring it back because we're going to float an essay that will allow young Nigerians, because our target is mainly the young Nigerians. Most of them will know more about America instead of Nigeria. We're going to use that essay to challenge them to know more about Nigeria. We're going to also bring back the anchor, in one of the anchor legs in the training of journalists in this country, that is the issue of TJI.
TJI?
Times Journalism Institute. You know, it's been, we lost it during the privatization era. That's why when people talk about asset stripping in Daily Times, people don't understand. Because what the BPE did was that in privatization, you have to use the core assets to repackage the company to make it attractive. And more than 95% of the assets of Daily Times were sold to make it attractive for people to show interest, and that was what made Folio to buy it. So those are some of the things we're looking in. We're going to look into as far as this 90-year celebration. Finally, we're going to have a dinner for media professionals and the political class, the business class, to come together and see if we still have the capacity to reinvent the leadership that the media has always provided this country. These are just the tripod that we want to use this 90th anniversary. We call it a reflective dinner.
Okay, before I go to the chairman, let me stay with you for this question. It has to do with you. In the last few weeks or thereabout, you did some like a rebrand. The front page, in fact, the nameplate of Daily Times changed from what it used to be spread across, is now to one corner. And some people began to wonder what's going on. Is this the same brand? Is Daily Times going to continue to give out information and news as it should? I know the chairman talked about the opinion pages, but what about the core news side of it?
Yeah, you see, I don't know how old you were when Daily Times were still in the old Daily Times.
At least I read
yes, you read it. That's exactly the mass side of Daily Times. And what we use these 90 years to do is to bring it back, because every newspaper in Nigeria has a generic name.
It used to be blue.
It's not blue, it's red.
At one corner.
No.
Red.
That
Always
is
been red.
it. It's in our archives.
Sunday Times was green, not
Okay,
blue.
yes.
Green.
So what we did was to actually, that's why we say that this is going to be a reflective period for all of us. What we did was to bring back the memory, and that is what is going to stay. That is the Daily Times we know. And you're talking about the news content, that's why I'm there. What we've been able to do is to put the structures, to make sure that the structures are there to manage Daily Times as a going concern. And after that, starting from July, mid of this June, we're looking gradually, it's going to be in phases, the editorial content. Because